The stars hung like scattered diamonds across the black sky as the human shuttle descended toward the surface of Virelia 7. Ethan leaned forward in his seat, eyes bright with curiosity. For months, his team had been scanning the signals from this distant world. Ancient radio waves had hinted at intelligent life, but no human had ever set foot here. The planet was wild, untamed, and full of dangers. Yet, Ethan felt no fear, only excitement. As the shuttle touched down, a thin layer of red dust rose around them. The cabin doors hissed open, revealing a landscape of jagged cliffs and dense forests. Strange, towering trees with silver bark swayed gently in the alien breeze, and far above, two suns cast long, eerie shadows across the ground. Ethan stepped out, taking in the raw beauty of the planet. He was used to harsh terrains, but Virelia 7 had a wild majesty, unlike anything he had seen. "Keep your eyes open," his commander warned. "Reports say their warriors can grow enormous. We need to be careful." Ethan nodded, though he didn't feel nervous. Caution was one thing, fear another. And he refused to let fear guide him. The humans were explorers, diplomats, not conquerors. And he had learned one important truth in his life. Courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. As they moved deeper into the forest, the team noticed signs of life. Footprints larger than any humans, and deep gouges in the trunks of the trees suggested something powerful had passed through. Ethan's pulse quickened. They were close. A sudden rustle made the group freeze. From behind a grove of silver-barked trees, she emerged. The alien warrior towered above them, standing at least 8 feet tall. Muscles rippled beneath her smooth, metallic-toned skin. Her eyes glimmered like liquid amber, sharp and alert, studying the humans with an intensity that made most of Ethan's companions step back. The other explorers whispered among themselves, fear tightening their throats. To them, she was a monster, a being of legend come to life. But Ethan's gaze did not waver. He saw her not as a threat, but as a sentient being, proud and strong. He noticed the way her movements were deliberate, almost ritualistic, a language of gestures as old as her people. The warrior crouched slightly, assessing them. Her lips moved, producing sounds that none of the humans could understand. But her body language was clear. She did not trust them. One of Ethan's team members, a tall scientist named Vera, whispered, "She's enormous." "We can't." "Stand down," Ethan said softly. "Don't make sudden moves." He stepped forward, raising his hands slowly. Palms open. A universal gesture of peace. The warrior tilted her head, analyzing him. Ethan's heart beat faster, but he remained calm. He had read the reports, understood the risks, yet he also knew that this was the first step toward understanding, not confrontation. For several long moments, neither moved. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of the alien flora, sharp and sweet at once. Then, with a fluid motion, the warrior extended a clawed hand. Not an attack, but as if testing the space around her. Ethan mirrored her gesture, keeping his hand visible, still open, still empty. There was a subtle change. The warrior's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in curiosity. She took a cautious step forward, her enormous feet pressing down on the alien soil, leaving deep impressions. Ethan stepped forward in turn, matching her pace without invading her personal space. "What is he doing?" Vera asked, voice trembling. "He's showing her respect," Ethan replied quietly. "Not weakness, respect." The alien warrior studied him, then performed a motion that looked like a bow, a gentle lowering of her head. Ethan inclined his own, feeling a spark of triumph. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. Recognition of each other's presence, acknowledgement of intention. Suddenly, a loud cry echoed through the forest, a warning or perhaps a challenge. Ethan turned slightly to see a smaller group of alien warriors emerging from the tree line. They moved with speed and precision, eyes fixed on the humans. Panic flared in his team, but Ethan's voice rang out, steady and commanding. "Hold your ground. No sudden moves. The lead warrior, still the towering female, stood between the humans and the approaching group. She growled, a low, vibrating sound that shook the leaves around them. Her posture was defensive but also protective, as if telling the others to stop. Ethan's heart pounded, but he felt an unusual calm. She had taken a stand, not against him, but for him, in some unspoken way. The smaller warriors halted. They eyed Ethan and his team with suspicion. Ethan realized then that the warrior's influence was absolute. Her size and presence alone commanded respect from her own people, but more importantly, her decision to intervene showed that she was capable of choice, capable of understanding beyond instinct and fear. Ethan lowered his voice, speaking slowly and clearly, even though he doubted she could understand. We are not here to fight. We want to learn. We want to understand your world. The alien warrior cocked her head. She sniffed the air, eyes flicking between him and the humans. Then, with a swift motion, she turned toward a nearby clearing, gesturing for them to follow. Her team watched warily, but she led the way, her stride powerful and confident. Ethan and his team followed, stepping carefully over roots and uneven ground. He kept his eyes on her, noting how she moved with a combination of grace and raw strength. Every motion was purposeful. She paused occasionally, glancing back to ensure they were still there, then continued. Eventually, they reached a wide plateau overlooking a valley. Strange rock formations jutted up like the fingers of some ancient giant. The sun cast long shadows across the ground, illuminating patches of silver grass that shimmered in the alien light. Ethan felt a sense of awe. This world was untamed, majestic, and dangerous. Yet it was alive in a way that no human city could ever be. The warrior stopped at the edge, turning her gaze to him. She made another sound, softer this time, more melodic, yet commanding attention. Ethan could not understand the words, but the meaning was clear. She was inviting him into her space, testing whether he would show respect here as well. He nodded, lowering himself slightly in a gesture of acknowledgement. She studied him for a long moment, then relaxed her stance. The tension in her shoulders eased, though her eyes remained sharp, alert. Ethan felt a rush of pride not for himself, but for the bridge they had begun to form. The humans around him whispered in awe. Fear was still in their voices, but so was wonder. Ethan turned to them, speaking quietly. This is the start. If we act with patience and respect, we can learn more than we ever imagined. She's not a monster. She's a guardian, a protector, a being who commands her world. And now, she's letting us in. The warrior finally stepped back slightly, giving them room. She did not smile, for she had no reason to, but she did not attack. And in her world, that was a significant gesture. Ethan knew this moment was the first of many tests they would face together. Each step building trust in a world that had no room for weakness. Night fell quickly on Virelia 7, and the valley was bathed in the soft glow of twin moons. Ethan felt a sense of hope. He had not conquered her, nor had he tried. Instead, he had chosen to meet her as an equal, as a being of courage and understanding. In that choice lay the power of humanity, not in weapons or strength, but in empathy, patience, and the ability to connect even across the vastest divides. As the stars sparkled above and the alien winds whispered through the silver grass, Ethan and the towering warrior stood facing each other. They were different, yet in that moment, they were equals. The future was uncertain, filled with challenges he could not yet imagine. But one thing was clear. The bond had begun, fragile but unbreakable, and it was a bond that would shape the destiny of humans and aliens alike. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Around him, the humans watched, learning the first lesson of Virelia 7. To face fear not with weapons, but with courage. And somewhere in the shadows, the 8-foot alien warrior regarded him with a new kind of respect, the kind earned, not demanded. This was only the beginning. The first night on Virelia 7 was restless for the humans. Sleep came in short bursts, interrupted by strange sounds echoing through the silver forests. Ethan, however, stayed awake, staring at the alien sky. 2 moons cast a pale glow across the valley, and the winds carried the faint scent of the towering trees. He could still feel the presence of the 8-foot warrior nearby, watching, studying. By morning, the air was thick with the sounds of the alien wilderness. Birds of strange shapes and colors called to each other from the treetops, and unseen creatures rustled in the undergrowth. Ethan's team was anxious. Most of them kept their weapons close, eyes darting toward the shadows. But Ethan's focus remained on the warrior. She had shown no aggression, yet she had not offered friendship. That would come only if they earned it. The warrior appeared at the edge of their temporary camp. Her footsteps were silent despite their size, a display of control and precision. Ethan stepped forward, greeting her in the calmest voice he could manage. "Good morning," he said, as if speaking to a person rather than a creature of legend. She regarded him with amber eyes, unblinking. Then, with a swift motion, she turned and moved toward the forest. Her gesture was clear. "Follow, if you can." Ethan signaled to his team, keeping his voice low. "Stay close, but do not approach her too quickly. Watch and learn." The warrior led them to a clearing where the terrain dropped sharply into a canyon. Strange, crystal-like formations jutted from the ground, casting fractured reflections in the sunlight. Here, Ethan understood, she was showing them her world, not just the land, but her strength, her home, her rules. A rustling from the opposite side of the canyon drew Ethan's attention. Another alien appeared, smaller, but equally muscular. The 2 locked eyes, and the smaller one produced a sharp, echoing sound that vibrated through the air. The larger warrior, the one who had allowed Ethan near, stood tall and unmoving, muscles tensed, ready. Ethan instinctively stepped forward, putting himself between the humans and potential danger. "Don't attack, unless necessary," he whispered. The warrior glanced at him. For a fleeting second, her expression softened, as if acknowledging his courage and calm. Then she turned her attention back to the approaching alien. The smaller alien let out another challenge, a series of clicks and growls that seemed almost musical. Ethan could feel the tension in the air, the energy between the 2 warriors. He realized then that this was not just a standoff. It was a test, a way to measure strength, control, and leadership. The larger warrior did not respond with aggression. Instead, she moved with precision, demonstrating skill and control, avoiding the attack without striking back. She showed restraint, not because she was weak, but because she understood the rules of her world. Ethan marveled at the display. Even the humans who had feared her now watched with awe. After a tense few moments, the smaller alien backed down, retreating into the trees. The warrior turned to Ethan and made a sound, a soft, melodic hum that seemed almost like laughter. It was not mocking, but approving. She had shown her strength and kept control, and now she acknowledged him, silently, as someone worthy of witnessing it. Over the next days, Ethan worked to learn more about her. Words were impossible, they spoke different languages, but communication came through gestures, mimicry, and careful observation. He noticed how she moved, how she hunted, how she interacted with her environment. He began to mirror her motions, showing respect for her space and her abilities. One morning, she led him to a high ridge overlooking a river that glowed faintly with bioluminescent algae. She demonstrated how she fished, her massive hands precise and quick, catching shimmering creatures with ease. Ethan watched and tried to mimic her, fumbling at first but gradually improving. She observed silently, amber eyes following every move. When he succeeded, she gave a small nod of approval, the closest thing to praise she could offer. That evening, as the twin moons rose, the humans gathered around a small fire. Ethan stayed apart, near the edge of the clearing, his gaze fixed on the warrior sitting nearby. She watched him as closely as he watched her. In that silence, trust was forming, not quickly, not easily, but steadily. Suddenly, a loud screech echoed from the forest. Both humans and the warrior tensed. From the shadows, A pack of predatory creatures emerged, their bodies sleek and fast, eyes glowing in the moonlight. Panic rippled through Ethan's team. But the warrior was calm. She moved with deadly precision, intercepting the creatures before they could attack. Her movements were fluid, efficient, and terrifying in their power. Ethan joined her, using his own tools and quick thinking to block the creature's path and create distractions. Together, human and warrior fought as a team, a strange harmony of instinct and strategy. The pack eventually retreated, leaving the clearing quiet once more. Ethan's chest heaved from exertion, but he felt a sense of triumph. The warrior turned to him then, standing tall. She did not touch him, nor did she speak. Yet her stance said everything. She had chosen to trust him in a moment of danger. And in doing so, she had accepted him as a partner. In the following days, Ethan learned more about her world. She led them through forests and valleys, revealing places of beauty and danger alike. She taught him how to read the signs of the land, how to notice tracks in the soil, changes in the wind, and movements of the wildlife. Each lesson was a test of patience, observation, and respect. Ethan passed most, failing some, but never giving up. Through these shared experiences, the bond between them deepened. The warrior began to follow him when he moved ahead, waiting for him to catch up. She allowed him small freedoms, small gestures of companionship. He responded in kind, never overstepping, always showing respect for her strength and independence. Other humans watched, still wary, still unsure. But Ethan's calm and patient approach inspired them. They began to see her not as a threat, but as a being capable of trust and connection. Slowly, the fear that had gripped the team began to loosen. One evening, as the sun set behind the jagged cliffs, Ethan and the warrior stood side by side, overlooking a valley filled with glowing flora. He spoke softly, though he knew she might not understand. "We are different," he said, "but we can learn from each other. You have strength beyond anything I have seen. I only hope to match it in spirit." She turned her head, amber eyes locking with his. For a long moment, there was no sound, only the rustling of the wind. Then, she reached out, not touching, but hovering her hand near his, a gesture of connection. Ethan mirrored her motion, feeling a rush of triumph and relief. This small act, simple yet profound, marked a turning point. From that moment, their trust became unspoken but undeniable. The warrior no longer saw him as an outsider to be tolerated, but as a companion who respected her world and her rules. Ethan realized that the path to understanding was never through dominance or fear, but through patience, courage, and empathy. Days turned into weeks, and the humans explored more of the alien world. Ethan continued to walk alongside the warrior, learning, observing, and proving himself with every step. She tested him often, setting challenges that required him to think, adapt, and persevere. Each time he succeeded, her approval grew, her respect deepened, and the bond between them strengthened. The other humans, once fearful, began to follow Ethan's lead. They learned to observe rather than act, to respect rather than dominate. Slowly, they began to see the 8-foot warrior not as a threat, but as a teacher, a guide, and a guardian. One night, under the twin moons, Ethan looked at her and realized something important. She had allowed him into her world, not by force, but by choice. She had tested him, observed him, and finally, accepted him as a being worthy of her trust. In her eyes, he saw a reflection of humanity's best qualities: curiosity, courage, and empathy. It was more than survival, more than cooperation. It was the beginning of a bond that could change the course of human exploration and alien relations alike. Ethan knew that challenges lay ahead, that danger was never far, but for the first time, he felt a sense of hope. Together, human and warrior could face whatever the universe had in store, and somewhere in the depths of the alien forest, a partnership had begun. One built not on fear or dominance, but on understanding, respect, and the quiet power of trust. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the day and the promise of tomorrow. The warrior stood silently beside him, her presence towering and reassuring. They were two different worlds, two different beings, yet in that moment, they were equals. And in equality, they had found strength. The path ahead would be difficult. Others would challenge them, dangers would arise, and tests would continue. But for now, they had each other. And that was enough to face anything. The sun rose slowly over the jagged cliffs of Virelia 7, casting long, golden beams across the alien landscape. Ethan stretched, feeling the stiffness in his muscles after another night of restless sleep. He knew the days ahead would be even more demanding. The warrior, as always, had already begun her patrol of the surrounding terrain, moving with fluid precision. Every step purposeful. Ethan watched her silently, admiration growing. Her size was imposing, yes, but her intelligence, control, and awareness were far more impressive. "Ready for today?" Vera asked, stepping up beside him. The other humans were quiet, still learning the rhythm of the alien world. Ethan nodded. "I think we are," he replied. "But today won't be easy. She's going to test us. All of us. And we have to be ready." The warrior appeared at the edge of the clearing, standing tall. Her amber eyes focused on Ethan. She made a sound, sharp, commanding, and unmistakable in its meaning. It was a call, a challenge, not a threat, but an invitation. Ethan understood. Today, he and his team would undergo her trials, tests designed to prove their worth and patience. The first test came quickly. A cliffside path loomed before them, narrow and slick with the alien dew. The warrior moved with ease, her long limbs carrying her across the precipice like she was part of the mountain itself. Ethan's heart pounded. One misstep, and it would be a long fall to the jagged rocks below. He watched her, studying each movement carefully. Then he stepped forward, mirroring her motions. The first few steps were awkward. His boots slipped. His balance wavered. The warrior glanced back, her gaze sharp, assessing. Ethan steadied himself, adjusting his weight, moving deliberately. Slowly, he found the rhythm. With each step, he grew more confident. The warrior allowed him to proceed, not by softening the path, but by respecting his effort. By the time he reached the other side, he was breathing heavily, but he felt a surge of pride. The warrior gave a small nod, a silent acknowledgement of his success. The other humans followed, some with more difficulty, but guided by Ethan's example and the warrior's careful observation. Next came the challenge of the river. It was wide and fast-moving, filled with strange bioluminescent fish that darted through the water. The warrior gestured for Ethan to cross first. He hesitated, looking at the turbulent current. Then he remembered what he had learned. Fear had no place in understanding. He stepped into the water, testing the depth with each move. The current was stronger than he expected, tugging at his legs. But the warrior was there, guiding him subtly, adjusting her stance, demonstrating the safest paths. Ethan mirrored her movements, learning quickly to adapt to the flow, to respect the power of the water without resisting it recklessly. When he reached the other side, soaked but unharmed, the warrior gave another nod of approval. Throughout the day, the tests continued. The warrior led them through dense forests where shadows hid predators, over rocky terrain that tested balance and agility, and into caves where the air was thick and the ground treacherous. Each challenge was designed not just to test physical skill, but observation, patience, and trust. At one point, the warrior stopped before a massive, gnarled tree, its roots sprawling like the veins of the planet itself. She gestured toward a narrow crevice at its base. Ethan peered inside. It was dark, cramped, and unfamiliar. "Go in," she commanded with a sharp sound. His team looked at him, hesitant. But Ethan remembered the lessons of the past weeks. Courage was about choice, understanding, and respect. He stepped forward, Entering the darkness, the warrior followed closely, silent but alert. Inside, he found a small chamber where glowing fungi illuminated the space. Strange carvings covered the walls, telling a story he could not yet understand. The warrior watched him carefully, waiting as he explored. Ethan reached out to touch one of the carvings, feeling a strange warmth beneath his fingertips. Then he realized the carvings were not just decoration, they were instructions, guidance left by her people. He studied them carefully, moving as deliberately as the warrior had taught him. When he completed the task correctly, she emitted a low, approving hum, and he felt a thrill of accomplishment. The final trial of the day was the most dangerous. The warrior led them to a canyon where a sudden storm brewed, lightning splitting the sky and rain falling in heavy sheets. Winds whipped around them, threatening to throw off their balance. In the middle of the canyon, a massive creature appeared. Drawn by the storm, it was enormous, with glimmering scales and sharp, predatory eyes. It hissed, sensing the intruders in its domain. The warrior moved forward, her body tense, ready to engage. Ethan stepped beside her, relying on the instincts and lessons she had taught him. Together, they faced the creature. He watched her movements closely, learning when to step back, when to advance, when to anticipate. Using the knowledge he had gained over weeks of observation, he helped distract the creature, guiding it away from the other humans. The battle was fierce but brief. The creature, realizing it was outmatched, retreated into the storm. Ethan's chest heaved with exertion, and he looked at the warrior. She was unharmed, standing tall and imposing. For the first time, her expression softened slightly, a hint of admiration in her amber eyes. By the end of the day, all of them were exhausted. The humans returned to camp, wet, muddy, and sore, but with spirits lifted. They had survived the warrior's trials, not through force, but through patience, observation, and trust. Ethan sat beside the fire, watching her as she observed the surroundings, ever vigilant. "Do you think she trusts us now?" Vera asked quietly. Ethan shook his head slowly. "Not completely. But she's testing us, and we've passed most of her challenges. That means she sees potential. That means she's willing to let us continue. Trust isn't given lightly in her world, but we've earned a small measure of it." The warrior approached, her movements smooth despite the slippery ground. She stood a few feet from Ethan, observing him. Then she performed a gesture, a lowering of her massive body, almost like a bow, but different. It was a sign of respect, acknowledgement of his courage, patience, and skill. Ethan returned the gesture, feeling a deep sense of connection. Over the next few days, the warrior continued to test him in small ways. Sometimes it was a physical challenge, like scaling cliffs or navigating narrow paths. Sometimes it was a test of patience, requiring him to observe without interfering. Each time, he succeeded, or at least learned from failure, without losing composure. Through these trials, the humans began to understand a profound truth. The warrior did not seek to dominate or destroy. She sought understanding, connection, and respect, and she was teaching them the same. One morning, as the twin suns rose over the alien horizon, the warrior led Ethan to a plateau overlooking a sprawling valley. Strange, luminous plants covered the ground, casting a gentle glow that illuminated the valley in a soft, ethereal light. The wind whispered through the silver trees, carrying the scent of the alien world. The warrior gestured for him to sit beside her. Ethan obeyed, careful to maintain respect and distance. They watched the valley together, silent but connected. For the first time, Ethan felt the depth of the bond they were forming. It was not friendship in the human sense, nor was it dominance or submission. It was mutual understanding, a partnership built on respect, courage, and trust. "Humans fear what they do not understand," Ethan said softly, though she might not comprehend his words. "But you are teaching me something different. That strength and size are not threats if they are guided by understanding. That courage is not just facing danger, but knowing when to act with wisdom." The warrior shifted slightly, amber eyes fixed on him. She emitted a low sound, not a growl, but a hum that seemed almost approving. Ethan understood the meaning. She had accepted him, not because he had proven himself through force, but because he had proven himself through patience, observation, and empathy. The humans around them were learning the same lesson. Fear was giving way to admiration, respect, and even curiosity. They saw the warrior not as a monster, but as a teacher, a guide, and a being capable of trust and connection. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the valley in shadow, Ethan realized that the hardest trials were not physical. They were lessons in patience, understanding, and respect. And in these lessons, he had discovered the true nature of the warrior, and of humanity itself. She had chosen him not by accident, not by weakness, but by recognizing in him the qualities that mattered most: courage, empathy, and the willingness to learn. The partnership they were forming would not be easy, nor would it be without challenges. But it was real, and it was powerful. Ethan looked at her, feeling a quiet pride. This was only the beginning. The universe was vast, filled with dangers and wonders alike. But he now understood that strength alone was not enough. Connection, understanding, and respect, these were the forces that could change worlds. And the 8-foot warrior, feared by all, had shown him the way. The valley was quiet, the twin moons casting a gentle silver glow over the alien terrain. Weeks had passed since Ethan and his team had arrived. Weeks filled with challenges, lessons, and moments that tested both courage and patience. But nothing had prepared him for what awaited them that night. A sudden tremor shook the ground beneath their camp. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. The warrior immediately rose, towering and alert, scanning the horizon with amber eyes that reflected moonlight. From the cliffs above, shadows moved fast, coordinated, and ominous. "They're coming," Ethan whispered to his team. They had grown to trust him, but fear still lingered. The humans scrambled, trying to prepare, but the warrior's calm presence anchored them. She emitted a low, commanding sound, and her stance told them clearly, "Stand your ground, follow her lead, and survive." From the shadows, a group of rogue aliens, the warrior's own species, emerged. Unlike her, they were aggressive, their size imposing. But their eyes betrayed uncertainty. They had heard of the human intruders and the towering warrior's strange new companion, and they saw an opportunity to challenge her dominance. Ethan glanced at the warrior. She did not flinch, did not hesitate. Her gaze met his, and in that instant, he understood. This was more than a battle. It was a test. The final trial of everything they had learned together. Trust, courage, strategy, and patience, all would be measured tonight. The first of the rogue group lunged forward. The warrior moved with breathtaking speed, intercepting the attack with precise, controlled force. Ethan followed, using the techniques she had shown him, reading the movements, anticipating the strikes, staying calm under pressure. Together, human and warrior moved as a single unit, complementing each other's strengths. One rogue alien tried to flank them, moving silently through the tall grass. Ethan noticed first, signaling with a subtle hand gesture he had learned from her. She pivoted, meeting him in a fluid motion, and together they neutralized the threat without unnecessary harm. The lesson was clear. Power was not about domination, but about control and understanding. The battle raged across the valley. Lightning split the sky, thunder shaking the ground. The humans fought bravely. Guided by Ethan's example and the warrior's command, she moved effortlessly through the chaos, her presence commanding respect even from her challengers. Amber eyes locked on Ethan whenever he acted, as if measuring his decisions, judging his worth. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. The rogue aliens, realizing the humans and the warrior were unmatched in coordination and strategy, began to retreat. The leader, massive and scarred, produced a loud cry, a challenge unfulfilled. But the warrior stood her ground, her silhouette tall against the alien night. Finally, the rogue group vanished into the shadows, leaving the valley silent once more. Ethan's chest heaved, his muscles aching from exertion. The humans around him were exhausted but alive. And for the first time, fear had been replaced with awe. The warrior approached him, massive form moving with grace despite her size. She stopped, only a few feet away, and emitted a low, resonant hum that seemed almost approving. Ethan knelt slightly, a gesture of respect he had learned from her. And she lowered her massive head in return. It was not a display of submission, but recognition. In her amber eyes, he saw something that transcended words: acceptance. He had earned her trust completely, not through strength alone, but through patience, understanding, and courage. Over the next days, the atmosphere shifted. The warriors' people, once wary and suspicious of humans, began to observe them with curiosity rather than fear. They saw how Ethan had survived her trials, how he had respected her rules and her world. And slowly, admiration replaced doubt. Ethan worked to solidify the bond he had formed. He continued to train, learn, and explore with the warrior. She allowed him into places few had ever seen, showing him sacred valleys, hidden caves, and high cliffs where the winds roared like the voices of their ancestors. Every gesture, every shared experience deepened their connection. One morning, as the twin suns rose, bathing the valley in warm light, the warrior led Ethan to a plateau at the edge of a cliff. Below them stretched a vast expanse of forest and rivers, glowing faintly in the dawn. She gestured for him to look. In the distance, her people were gathered, watching. It was clear they had come to witness something significant. The warrior made a series of gestures, calling attention to Ethan. She did not speak, but her meaning was unmistakable. She had chosen him, publicly, as her companion, her equal. The humans and alien spectators alike held their breath. Ethan stepped forward, bowing slightly, a gesture of humility and respect. The warrior emitted a sound, loud and clear this time, resonating across the plateau. Her people responded with similar tones, a chorus of acknowledgement. In their own way, they accepted Ethan not as an outsider, but as a trusted ally and companion to one of their greatest warriors. Ethan's heart swelled. He had come to Virelia 7 as an explorer, uncertain of what he would find. Yet he had discovered far more. The strength of trust, the power of understanding, and the way courage and empathy could bridge even the widest divides. That afternoon, the humans and warrior trained together openly, demonstrating their skills to her people. The warrior moved with Ethan at her side. A seamless partnership, she guided him through exercises that tested agility, strength, and awareness. Every movement they made together spoke of trust earned, lessons learned, and respect shared. By nightfall, the humans had earned the full acceptance of her people. There were no more whispers of fear, no hesitation in their eyes. Instead, they looked at Ethan and the warrior with admiration, seeing a model of cooperation, understanding, and courage. Sitting beside the fire that night, Ethan reflected on the journey. From the first tense encounter to the trials and dangers of the valley, every step had been a lesson. He had learned to see beyond size and strength, to value patience, empathy, and wisdom. And in return, he had earned the respect of a being who had been feared by all, a warrior whose size and power had once seemed impossible to bridge. The warrior approached, settling beside him. For a long time, neither spoke. Words were unnecessary. In silence, they shared understanding, connection, and the quiet triumph of partnership. She did not need to smile to show approval. Her presence alone communicated trust and acceptance. Humans can be more than they seem, Ethan whispered softly, as if she could understand. We can be brave, patient, and kind. We can choose to connect instead of dominate. And sometimes, that's the greatest strength of all. She made a sound in response, a deep, resonant hum. Ethan understood it as acknowledgement. Together, they had proven something extraordinary. That courage and respect, even from vastly different worlds, could create bonds stronger than fear, stronger than misunderstanding. The next morning, As the sun's rays touched the valley, Ethan watched the warrior move among her people. They looked to her. Yes. But now they also looked to him. He was no longer just a human intruder. He was part of a partnership that had changed perceptions, built trust, and created a bridge between worlds. Ethan felt a quiet sense of pride. He had not tamed her in the way one might tame a creature, nor had he sought to dominate. Instead, he had chosen understanding, patience, and courage, and in that choice, he had found a companion, an ally, and a friend. The warrior returned to his side, amber eyes bright in the morning light. Together, they gazed over the valley, knowing that the days ahead would hold challenges and adventures yet unknown, but they were ready. Together, human and alien warrior could face anything side by side, equal in strength, united in trust. As they stood there, the wind carrying the scent of alien forests and the promise of new beginnings, Ethan understood the true lesson of Virelia 7. Fear was overcome, not by force, but by courage, empathy, and connection. The universe was vast, filled with dangers and wonders alike, but bonds like theirs could change worlds. The warrior, once feared for her size and power, now walked beside him not as a threat, but as a partner. Her people had seen the value of human courage and wisdom, and Ethan knew that this was only the beginning. Together, they would explore new heights, face new challenges, and forge a legacy of trust and cooperation across the stars. For the first time, humanity had a friend in the stars. A friend who was massive, powerful, and unforgettable. And the warrior, who had once been feared, had found in a human a companion worthy of respect, understanding, and loyalty. The fire crackled. The alien night hummed softly. And under the twin moons of Virelia 7, two worlds had come together in trust, courage, and partnership. Ethan smiled, knowing that their story, though just beginning, would be remembered not for battles won, but for bonds forged and trust earned. Together, they faced the unknown. Together, they had changed the course of two worlds.